It's Wednesday, and you're listening to Warlock Wednesday on anyotherpodcast.com.
Good evening, and welcome to another Warlock Hour with Razor on Warlock Wednesdays, found on anyotherpodcast.com. Alright, I got a lot of entertainment news, but first up, we're going to get to the comic releases. So, comic releases for this week from DC, Teen Titans number 16, that's part of the Death of the Family series, which is wrapping up next month, and with issue number 17 of Batman. So this Teen Titans number 16 is the final one that is not a Batman issue. Everything is going to come to a head in Batman number 17. So far, I'm really liking the endings of each of the number 16s that have kind of all linked together and brought it all so that it can wrap up in one comic. So one more to go, Teen Titans number 16, and then one issue of Batman, and we get to wrap this whole thing up with the return of the Joker. Also from DC this week, Justice League Dark number 16, Red Lanterns number 16, Superman number 16, and also a Masters of the Universe, The Origin of He-Man, a one-shot comic. So that's from the DC. Those are the titles from DC this week. From Marvel this week, we are getting Avengers number 4. This is part of the Marvel Now. New Avengers type thing. So it's Avengers number 4, Hawkeye number 7, Superior Spider-Man number 2, X-Men Legacy number 5, and Dark Avengers number 186. Now, before I get to the independents, I was looking up stuff this week, not related to comics, but found something related to comics, and that was, there are very few DC characters that are actually Canadian. And since this is a Canadian show, I wanted to bring this up at this point. When I was looking it up, there are no DC characters that are Canadian that are mainstream. All their characters are small. They're mostly not heroes. Some are. There's very few. I couldn't even name you any. However, I found the number to be about 20. There's about 20 DC characters that are listed as being Canadian, and like I said, not anybody that I knew. I didn't save the link, though, so unfortunately you'd probably have to Google that, but there are 20 characters. I did find for Marvel that there are 34 characters, so there's only 14 more for Marvel that are Canadian. However, they have big-time heroes that are Canadian. We have Deadpool, who is, like, everybody loves Deadpool. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people love Deadpool because he's funny, he kicks ass, he's a great character. Of course, my favorite hero, Wolverine, is Canadian, and not only is he one of the top guys for Marvel, when you look at it, he currently runs the Professor Xavier School for Gifted Children. He has his own issues of comics that he's doing stuff in. He's part of the new X-Men, the new Uncanny Avengers. So, I mean, he is everywhere. So, I mean, he's a prominent Canadian in the comics that Canadians can have a hero to look to. Of course, also, there was Alpha Flight. I don't think that comic's being made anymore, but Alpha Flight was a group, kind of like the Avengers. You know, we had Puck and Captain Canuck and, you know, others on that team as part of Alpha Flight. So, I mean, Marvel, I've always been a Marvel guy and over DC. So, when I saw this, it made me proud that I chose Marvel over DC as being my main comic of the two big the two big companies of comics, because they actually don't care what your nationality is. You don't have to be an American or an alien. You can be Canadian. So that's why I'm a bigger Marvel guy than a DC guy, or one of the reasons. Okay, so moving off from that to the independents. Not a lot that I noticed this week that interests me, But Doctor Who Prisoners of Time #1 from IDW Publishing. This is going to be a 12-issue series, so I'm not sure if it's going to be a monthly or a bi-monthly issue or comic, but I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks. So Doctor Who Prisoners of Time #1 comes out this week. From Image Comics, Hackslash #23 and Spawn #227. So that's all the comic releases coming out this week. So when you're listening to this on Wednesday, you can pick up these comics. I have to wait till Wednesday as I'm recording this Monday night, as usual. Alright, so on to movie news. And we're going to go looking for the new releases. Actually, no. So, sorry, first we got to do the top 10. So let's go to the top 10 movies for this week. And I was very happy to see that #1 is a new #1, and it's a new movie. It supplanted both the Jessica Chastain movies from last week. And I actually seen this movie this weekend. I went to last night, Sunday night, for me, which was about 4 nights ago for you, listening on Wednesday. Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters took the #1 spot with $19.6 million. #2 was Mama, which was #1 last week. They came in at $13 million. Zero Dark 30, which dropped to #3 from #2, brought in a $9.7 million. And Silver Linings Playbook, still increasing its theater numbers, up another 118 theaters this week, brought in another $9.4 million, bringing its total to just under $1 million below Zero Dark 30, even though it's been out longer. Like I said before in past episodes, that Silver Linings Playbook got a very, very, very limited release just before Christmas. I think mostly to make the awards. You have to release your movie before the end of the calendar year to be considered for awards. So they released it. It had an official release. It just wasn't in many theaters. But now that the movie's gotten so much hype and gotten 1 Golden Globes, it's up for I think 5 or 6 or maybe even more Oscars. It's definitely doing better. So that's why Silver Linings Playbook, I keep pushing it out there, and you know what's funny? I still haven't yet to see it myself. Working at a movie theater, you think I would get to see movies more? You'd be wrong. Because I work there, I don't get to see as many movies as I would like. But definitely, if you are looking for a movie to see, go see this movie. From the little snippets I see from doing the theater checks that I have to do in the theater, making sure everything's good on the screen, and make sure nobody's using their cell phones and whatever. It's a very good film, very enjoyable from what everybody has been telling me, so go check it out. #5 this week was another new movie, Parker, with Jason Statham. He's one of those guys that I will see any movie that he does just because I love his movies. He's a very... he's a good actor. He's not a great actor, he's a good actor, but all his action sequences are always so good. He used to be a stunt driver, so usually a lot of the times he's doing a lot of his own driving when he's in movies like that. Speaking of actors that I love to see movies that they do no matter what, after watching Hansel and Gretel, the first movie from this week, Jeremy Renner is definitely on that list of people I want to see. This was just a fantastic film. It was entertaining. It had a good story. The acting was really good. It was just all around. So Jeremy Renner moves up onto that list for me as well. And that made my girlfriend make the comment that I definitely have to see The Town. And it's a movie that I've wanted to see, and I haven't seen it. And it's directed by Ben Affleck, who's a great director. It stars Ben Affleck. It looks like a fantastic movie. I just have not seen it myself. So my girlfriend, when I told her the story about Jeremy Renner, she says, well, now you have to see The Town more. So I'm definitely going to see it. I just haven't seen it yet. #6 on the list, Django Unchained. I almost said the D. The D is silent. What am I doing? So Django Unchained came in at 6 with $4.9 million. By the way, I forgot to mention the numbers for Parker. It's $7 million for Parker. The third new movie from Friday, #7, Movie 43, $4.8 million. I've had mixed reviews from the people who have seen it at the theater where I work, so it's hard to say where it lies. 8th on the list is Gangster Squad with $4.2 million. Les Mis comes in at $4.2 million as well, but just below at $4.22, whereas Gangster Squad came in at $4.27. So Les Mis is sitting there at 9th, and in 10th place, all the way down from 5th, Broken City with $4 million. So Broken City does not have kind of staying power, as we like to say. It was only released a week ago, or a week and a half ago by the time you're listening to this. So it's dropped from 5th, where it debuted, down to 10th. Expect it to drop probably a little bit more as time goes on. I mentioned last week that The Hobbit would probably take a couple more weeks to, 2 to 3 weeks to get to 300 million. I'm still sticking to that. Another week goes by and it's at 293 million. So it needs 7 million over the next couple of weeks for me to be right on that. It made 3.3 million. It's in 12th place. I'm only mentioning it because, like I said, I think it'll crack that $300 million mark within the next few weeks. Alright, so that's your top 10 movies. And from there, I have a lot of entertainment news that came out this week. Some of it even came out today, but we'll get through it as we get through it. First bit I want to mention, as you know, The Dark Knight Rises that came out last summer was the last of the Nolan trilogy. Well, Batman fans clamor, as they do, for the next Batman film. Now, DC, or Warner Brothers, who actually makes the movies from the DC Comics, because AOL Time Warner owns both DC and Warner Brothers, obviously. So they make the comics. They've always made the comics into movies because they've always owned the property. Unlike Marvel, which is now its own studio, and they've always optioned out their properties to different studios like Fox and Sony and Universal and other movie companies to get their comics made because they didn't have a studio. Warner Brothers has always owned theirs, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to do a Justice League movie. That's supposed to come out in 2015. That is their focus for film right now. And I mean, they do have Man of Steel coming out next year, but they really want to do the Justice League movie before they even think about another Batman movie. So it looks like the Batman film will be at the earliest, and this isn't even an official date. This is just saying at the very earliest that we could see a new Batman film is 2017. This doesn't mean that 2017 is going to be a Batman movie. It could be 2018, 2019, 2020. We don't know, but 2017 is the earliest you're going to see another Batman film. Now, I don't mind this. I don't mind introducing Batman into the Justice League movie. As I said, it just ended with the Christopher Nolan trilogy, Batman, or Dark Knight Rises. We are going to get a new Batman. However, this leads me to the problem I've had with the Justice League movie since they announced that they were going to release it in 2015. And that being that if they're going to get the actors that are playing, like, for example, Henry Cavill is playing Man of Steel. That we know. If he does not play Superman in the Justice League movie, it's bullshit. The reason why it's bullshit is because the Justice League movie, in order to succeed well, and not just succeed okay, they need to look at what Marvel did. I know that they're competing companies. I know that they need to make money and try and steal money from each other in a sense, not directly per se, but they need to basically look at the model that Marvel did. They released 5 movies that were all interconnected in a very small way. There was only like cameo scenes and little snippets at the end, but they were all interconnected that led to the Avengers movie. The Avengers movie was an amazing success because not only did it link all those movies together, and you'd have fans from each one of those, because maybe if you were a fan of Thor, you weren't a fan of Captain America. Maybe you were a fan of Iron Man but weren't a fan of Thor. Maybe you were a fan of Hulk but you didn't like Iron Man. It brought all those fans together because it had all those people in there. Not only that, the Avengers also brought in the non-comic book fans. And this is where Justice League needs to be. Justice League is going to bring the comic book fans. Myself, all my comic book friends / nerds that love comics are going to watch the Justice League movie. There's no question about it. There may be a few that say, oh, maybe I'm not going to see it. But you know what? Every comic book geek is going to go see the Justice League movie. Because let's face it, we've wanted a Justice League movie probably as long as we've been reading comics. So this is fantastic. However, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. You'll have success with just the comic book geeks. But do you want just success? Or do you want to actually make a profit and make this movie into something like The Avengers? It's going to be hard to top The Avengers. The Avengers is the number 3 grossing movie of all time. There are only 2 movies that have made more money than The Avengers in the history of movies. So the fact that Justice League doesn't reach that is fine. But they still need to be amazing. They still need to be very good in order to bring in the non-comic book fans. And those are the fans, those are the dollars that Warner Brothers needs to bring in. And if they don't do it right, they're not going to bring in those fans. To have only Man of Steel be your only lead-in movie, you have no Green Lantern, you have, well, let's face it, the Green Lantern movie was a bust. You have no Wonder Woman movie. You have no Batman movies anymore. They're done. You have a new Batman coming in. Henry Cavill is the only one that's going to link everything together. And basically, if I would say that if basically Man of Steel doesn't do very well, the Justice League movie could get canceled or will flop. So there's a lot riding on Man of Steel. This just posted recently today, within the last hour, basically says that Justice League is not going to go forward, and they're not going to, like, Warner Brothers is not going to fully commit. Let me just see if I can find the quote here. Warner Brothers has yet to fully commit to Justice League, and the only way it moves forward is if Man of Steel is a hit. This comes from Variety's profile of Warner Brothers president Jeff Robinoff, and it's hard to say that this is a surprise, as outside of the Batman films, DC hasn't had a lot of luck on the big screen during the last decade of comic book movies. Other than Christopher Nolan's Bat films, they've had Bryan Singer's Superman Returns and The Green Lantern, neither of which were well received. And that's exactly what I've been saying. Man of Steel has to be a hit. They have to do this right. Justice League needs Superman, Man of Steel to do well. They also need everything else to shape up and make this movie as good as it can be. Because let's face it, this movie is going to cost anywhere from $250 to $300 million to make, which means profit-wise, in order to make money on this movie, you need to make $400 to $700 million to consider this movie even close to being a success. And the only way to do that is to get the non-comic book fans to go. To get the fans that aren't just Superman fans to go. Because you know what? You've failed with the Superman Returns movie, so Man of Steel is your go-to right now. Henry Cavill has to be in it. You need to find a very good person to replace Batman, and then that person has to make solo Batman films. You have to find a Green Lantern, or if you're going to keep Ryan Reynolds on, maybe you have to make that other Green Lantern movie to make it succeed. You have to find an amazing person to play Wonder Woman. You need an Aquaman. You just need to do things. You need an anchor, basically. And right now, I don't see Warner Brothers / DC having any anchor at all to anything remotely, like anything at all that would keep this movie going. And it's just frustrating. Also posted today, I'm going to actually link this with another story, but also posted today, there is a chance that Star Wars Episode 7 might not come out in 2015. They're saying that because J.J. Abrams is now the director, he's been announced, he's also going to be... Okay, so much to do. I'm doing it out of order. Alright, so let's go first what I just said. J.J. Abrams has been announced as the director of Star Wars Episode 7. As we know, J.J. Abrams is currently at the helm of Star Trek Into Darkness. He's directing that one. He's in post-production on that one, which comes out in May. He's been now definitely, it was confirmed this past week that from Walt Disney and Lucasfilms that J.J. Abrams will direct Star Wars Episode 7, which I'm ecstatic about. I loved what he did with Star Trek. I've heard people say that they don't like this. You know what? You're always going to have people saying that, so it doesn't really matter what they think. Right now, this is my opinion. I think that J.J. Abrams is great for this. I think he's a good director. He's done very well producing. He knows the story. He's been a fan of it. He knows what he wants to do. It looks like we're going to get back our three mainstays, Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, and Harrison Ford as Han Solo. So hopefully we can get a Chewbacca in there, maybe, But it is going to focus on their children, I believe. Believe that's been reported. But the thing is, J.J. Abrams is going to do a great job. Now, at the same time, he is still going to produce the third Star Trek film. So he's still going to be working on that. He's also supposed to be linked in some way to the next film of the Mission Impossible franchise. This man is so busy right now, and so that's why I think we may get the delay. And I'm just going to go back now to the delay article. I just read it out of order. I should have told you that J.J. Abrams was getting the director. Because he's getting the director, he's not sure that the 2015 release date is going to suit him and might not make it till 2016. So let's just get here. It says, it turns out it might have been ambitious for the 2015 date. Director J.J. Abrams did not agree to a 2015 release date, and that production of Star Wars Episode 7 could be pushed back if Abrams makes that request. Considering that Abrams is A, still needs to finish post-production on Star Trek Into Darkness, B, will reportedly still produce Star Trek 3, and C, has a million other projects, one of which I mentioned was Mission Impossible, in the works, we're going to guess that 2015 probably won't happen. We went back and looked, and Abrams began developing Star Trek in 2005, 4 years before the film would hit theaters. That's a lengthy development window, and if we followed that math, it would put Star Wars Episode 7 in theaters in 2017. Disney would like that not to happen, so we'll split the difference and guess that Star Wars Episode 7 will actually hit theaters in the summer of 2016. Now, that is one person's opinion. That would be article writer Mike Sampson from ScreenCrush.com. Not a sponsor. I've heard that on the other another podcast networks, and I know I'm using it too, but it's true. So not a sponsor, but I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. So that's his opinion that it's probably in 2016. Now, that's not to say because he's not working on the script, he doesn't have to do as much as he's done on some of his other films. He's also not doing producing. He's just doing the directing. So maybe it could still get done by 2015, but it's not looking great at this moment because of the announcement of who is directing and how busy his slate is. Perhaps we could be pushed back to 2016. That being said, if it does come out in 2015, the movies that are scheduled to open, as long as everything stays status quo, which we know that doesn't necessarily mean it will, you've got in 2015, Avengers 2, Justice League, Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, and Star Wars would all be released within 2015. That is fan-fracking-tastic for any nerd / geek / whatever you want to call yourself. That is amazing. Now, other Star Wars news. It was announced that the 3D re-releases of the Star Wars prequel movies, Episode 2 and Episode 3, are cancelled. Which also means, even though there was no dates giving, the original trilogy, Episodes 4, 5, and 6, are also off the table. So, The official statement is Lucasfilms has decided to postpone this fall's scheduled release of Star Wars Episode 2 and 3 in 3D. Given the recent development that we are moving forward with the new Star Wars trilogy, we will now focus 100% of our efforts on Star Wars Episode 7 in order to ensure the best possible experience for our fans. We will post further information about our 3D re-release plans at a later date. So they still have the plans to do it, but they're postponing it because they want to focus on Episode 7, and you know what? I'm fine with that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of 3D. I hate the prequels. The only reason I was going to go see the original series, the episodes 4, 5, and 6 in 3D, was just to see them on the big screen again, even though they are the fucked up versions that George Lucas made. I would love to see them on the big screen again, so that would be the only reason I go see them. 3D, to me, is not great. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Episode 7 being their focus. Great. I love it. Okay, moving on. Kind of a funny story came across my sites this week. Any of you who have seen the movie The Princess Bride know who Inigo Montoya is. Well, apparently some gentleman wore the "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die" t-shirt on a plane. And, well, it kind of upset some people. The flight attendant apparently told Mullins Mullins is the name of the person, she would attempt to find him another shirt, but never did, so the t-shirt stayed on. The flight staff asked him to remove his shirt. He didn't have one in his carry-on, so they were going to find him one. They never did. It's just so funny that this would cause such a stir on a plane. It was a gentleman from New Zealand. It was intimidating other airline passengers. So it was I just found it very funny that somebody who was wearing the shirt, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." That as a t-shirt is awesome for anybody who's seen Princess Bride, but apparently it upset, or I don't know, it made an awkward flight for some of the passengers. He was asked to put on a different shirt, didn't have it. It's silly. It's just the quote that Mullins told the reporter was, "I thought it was all a bit silly. The person next to me was laughing because they knew the movie." That's just great. It's just absolutely fantastically funny. So I just wanted to give you a little, give you a little laugh maybe. Okay, we talked about a lot of DC comic issues with their Justice League movie. Now we've got some news from the Marvel side of things. Not some bad news, though, some good news. Kevin Feige, who we all know works at Marvel, confirms that Ant-Man is the official start of Marvel's Phase 3. And this will include, drumroll, I can't do it, Doctor Strange. That's right, Doctor Strange is going to get his own movie, and that is going to be part of the Phase 3 set of films for Marvel. So Ant-Man's going to be the first one, which makes sense since it's coming out after Avengers 2, and Doctor Strange will be in there. We should see one or two more, and then Avengers 3, or some other group-up movie. Now, some people might not know who Doctor Strange is, and that's the idea. The thing is, Guardians of the Galaxy, not a lot of people know what the Guardians of the Galaxy are either, so that's why they're doing that movie. They're taking some of their lesser-known characters and making big-name movies out of them. Ant-Man's being directed by Edgar Wright. I'm really looking forward to it. The exact quote here, I'm just looking for it. Here we go. Ant-Man is definitely part of Phase 3. Like Iron Man 3, it's certainly set in the Marvel Universe, but it's also through the lens of Edgar Wright, which is the only reason we're making the movie. I've known Edgar since our first lunch together at Comic-Con in 2004. He asked me what Marvel was doing with Ant-Man. We weren't even a studio then. What a difference 8 years makes. It's very much an Ant-Man origin movie from the perspective of Edgar Wright and his co-writer Joe Cornish. It will of course be firmly planted in the Marvel comic universe, but a different corner than we've seen before. Now, some people have taken that quote to mean that the film might be set in England, which, if they use Hank Pym as the Ant-Man, which I believe they are, Pym is actually an Old English name. It's an Old English surname. I looked that up because I was wondering, and yes, it's very possible that it could start in England. I think more what Feige was saying here, what Kevin Feige, I'm not sure exactly if I'm saying that right, Feige, it looks like beige with an F, so it could be Kevin Feige. I think what they're saying here is it's just not normal from what we've seen so far. And Edgar Wright is definitely a different director. For any of you who've seen Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, the two movies that he directed with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as the lead actors, of which he's making a third one. He's definitely got a different style. He's got a style on his own. So I think that's more what he's saying. And the fact that Edgar has been basically wanting to do this since 2004 and now actually that Marvel's their own studio, I think that's fantastic. So definitely looking forward to the Ant-Man Doctor Strange being part of Phase 3. So moving on from the Marvel studios to other Marvel franchises, it was announced this week that 3 more of the original X-Men trilogy movie cast members are joining the new X-Men cast members for X-Men Days of Future Past. And those actors are Anna Paquin, who played Rogue, Ellen Page, who played Kitty Pryde, and Shawn Ashmore, who played Iceman. So all 3 of those are now confirmed. So far, including those 3, we have those 3, plus Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, and Hugh Jackman returning to reprise their roles from the original X-Men movies, and now teaming up with the new class of James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, and so on. So this is shaping up to be absolutely fantastic cast-wise, and it's going to be a huge movie. And continuing with that, Bryan Singer was talked to this week about X-Men Days of Future Past, and I'm just going to read you some of the quotes that he said in this interview. It's epic. I don't think people realize how big this movie is going to be. We get to bring both casts together. We've cracked it in a way that it makes sense. I had a 2-hour conversation with James Cameron about time travel, string theory, multiverses, and all that. You have to create your rules and stick with them. That's why Terminator and Back to the Future work so well. And there are certain mechanisms in X-Men, certain powers, perception, and characters that make this possible. It has a lot of aspects of the comic. The actual comic of Days of Future Past had a whole ton of stuff going on. So it's like any of these things, you have to distill it. But I think the fans will be pleased that some of the most exciting parts of Days of Future Past are going to be connected to this film. I'm taking into account every movie. I'm not just grabbing from my first 2 movies, because as we know, Bryan Singer directed X-Men and X2. I'm not just grabbing from my first 2 movies in First Class, I'm smashing them all together. I'm taking in X-Men Last Stand, I'm taking in X-Men Origins. I'm taking into account the entire universe as it's being laid out so far on the screen and really respecting it and trying to work with it. People took things in various directions, so there's some cleanup, but ultimately I'm not just ignoring them either. So basically what he's saying here is that even though there was some inconsistencies with X-Men Last Stand and inconsistencies with X-Men Origins because different people worked on those movies, he's not going to ignore what they did. He's going to take it into account, and he's going to use it. He's going to use it to the best of his abilities to make this movie fantastic. This movie is scheduled for release in 2014, and I am definitely looking forward to it. So I hope that he does as good a job as he did with the first X-Men movie. Even X2 wasn't that bad. I enjoyed X-Men, the first one, more than I did the second one, but that's still, he was great as a director, and the fact to have this much of a cast already is just great. So I'm looking forward to it, and that was his interview. And the last bit of Marvel news that's not from Marvel Studios is it was announced that Paul Giamatti, Paul Giamatti is in talks to play the Rhino in the new Amazing Spider-Man movie. Also in talks to play a character that's not yet named is Felicity Jones. So, okay, we've already known that we have Electro in the movie, and now they're adding Rhino possibly. I'm not 100% sold on this. Multiple villains in movies can go one of two ways, and more often than not, it goes the bad way. As we saw in the last Spider-Man movie, where we had too many villains, there wasn't enough story, there wasn't enough. It was too disconnected. There wasn't a great rivalry, so to speak. Now, the only thing that I can think of that would make this work would be the Sinister Six. However, I don't think they've developed enough to make that storyline a plausible one for Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't like this. If that's the case, I would rather see just Electro be the bad guy and more hints towards Green Goblin with Norman Osborn coming out of whatever coma or whatever situation he's in medically that we had noticed in the first movie. I'm not 100% sold that we need the Sinister Six right now. However, that could be the direction this is going. If it is, I wish them the best. I hope that it works for them because I enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man and I would love to enjoy Amazing Spider-Man 2. But this is going back to what I've seen in 15 years of working at a movie theater. You have to do things right, otherwise it's just going to blow up in your face. Now, Sony's already screwed up with Spider-Man before. They fucked up so bad they lost their director and their star. They were supposed to make a Spider-Man 4. That didn't happen. That's why Amazing Spider-Man came about. So, it's just as easily could be another blow up by Sony trying to do too much all at once. So, that's the entertainment side of things this week. So let's move on to the sports side of things. Now, there was no Super Bowl this past week. It's next week. There was no football, at least no real football this past week, because they had the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl is like the NFL All-Star Game. And basically what that means is everybody who's not playing in the Super Bowl, who were good enough in the regular season, get voted to play in the Pro Bowl. And as we know, this game has always been high scoring, but this year it was not only high scoring, but it was lopsided. The NFC crushed the AFC 62-35. The NFC scored 62 points. You see games in the NFL that don't even have that as a combined score. That's hilarious and ridiculous. All at the same time. It was all passing. The running backs got the day off, basically. The most rushing yards was by Marshawn Lynch, who rushed for 21 yards. That's it. 21 yards. Passing yards? Well, let's see. For the AFC, Andrew Luck had 205, Matt Schaub had 113, and Peyton Manning had 43. Now, Matt Schaub threw 2 interceptions, so that hurt the AFC, but threw for 1 touchdown. Andrew Luck threw for 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, and Manning threw for a touchdown and no picks. So that's where the touchdowns came from in the AFC. In the NFC, Mr. Eli Manning threw for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 interception. Drew Brees threw for 131 yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And Russell Wilson threw for 96 yards, but 3 touchdowns. That is insane. The fact that 62 points were put up against the AFC leads me to believe that my pick to win the Super Bowl from my head, the San Francisco 49ers, was a good pick because the NFC crushed the AFC in the Pro Bowl. It stands to reason that the NFC right now is the stronger teams. So, I don't know. And I do have a question, though. I don't know the voting. I don't know how it worked. But something tells me that Tom Brady probably should have been at the Pro Bowl. My question is, why wasn't he? he's probably still pouting from losing. The guy sat on the field looking like, I don't know, but I mean, the coach didn't even do the post press conference interview from losing. The guy only does interviews when he wins. Well, screw you, Mr. Cheater Belichick. It just bugs me. Anyways, that was the story in the NFL, the Pro Bowl, blah blah blah. Looking forward to the Super Bowl, mind you. That's coming up this weekend. As I said, my heart says I want to see the Ravens win just to have Ray Lewis going on top, but he has won a Super Bowl before, so he doesn't need it. That's what my heart says. My head says the San Francisco 49ers are going to win. So the Harbaugh Bowl, the Harbaugh Super Bowl, is, I believe, going to go the 49ers' way. I think the NFC are going to sweep the Pro Bowl / Super Bowl, and we're going to see the San Francisco 49ers return to the champions' circles. Alright, so other than football, we have some hockey news. Okay, first thing I want to talk about in the hockey news is the unrestricted free agents. Just hours ago, Canadiens star defenseman P.K. Subban signed a 2-year contract worth $5.25 million, I think it was. So roughly averaging out to $2.7 million per year for 2 years. So per year. Okay. Now compare that with Jamie Benn, who obviously showed that he's a much better player than P.K. Subban. He's also a forward, so he gets more chances to shine offensively. He signed a 5-year deal for $5.25 million per year. So he's making basically twice as much as P.K. Subban. So let's go to a player who's a little bit more in line with what PK got, and that's Michael Del Zotto of the New York Rangers. He's also a defenseman. He's put up better numbers, in my opinion, than PK. He's been more consistent than PK. However, he got a lesser contract than PK. His 2-year contract was $5.1. However, I think the reason why the contract got made the way it did for PK is PK wanted a long-term deal. He wants to be in Montreal. However, the Canadiens, because of the look at the salary caps coming up, they needed to get under the cap for next year, which is going to be going down. So, signing him to a 2-year deal means that after that they can see where things stand and maybe sign him long term after that. However, if I'm not mistaken, after this 2-year deal, Mr. Subban becomes an unrestricted free agent, and then he could move somewhere else for better money if he finds the contract that he wants. So these teams, both the Rangers and the Habs, might lose some really good players if they don't lock these guys up. But, I mean, you still can. They have that deal in place with the new CBA where you can sign for 8 years with the team that you're with and only 7 years with the team that you're going to if you're leaving the team. So, who knows, maybe this is the right way to go about it. So I wanted to figure out how I was going to do the NHL each week. And then it occurred to me, when I was sure that there was going to be no NHL season this year, what I did is I was simulating the season on my EA Sports 2013 or NHL 13 video game. And no, EA Sports is not a sponsor. What I was doing was I was recapping each week what the positions were and who the leaders were. So that's what I'm going to do for hockey news. I'm going to recap the top 8 teams in each conference each week to tell you where your favorite team might be sitting. I'll tell you where my favorite team is sitting, and it's not in the playoffs. But I'll tell you where each teams are sitting, and I'll also give you a few statistics. So in the Eastern Conference, the top teams are Tampa Bay is the number 1 seed right now. They've won 4 out of their 5 games, so that's why they're in the number 1 seed. New Jersey's number 2, Boston's number 3, the Ottawa Senators are number 4, Winnipeg Jets are number 5, the Montreal Canadiens are number 6. Having 3 Canadian teams in the playoffs from the Eastern Conference would be absolutely amazing, but we're still very early in the season, remember that, people. Pittsburgh's sitting at number 7, and the Islanders are number 8. Now, my team, unfortunately, is in 12th place, 4 spots out. However, only 1 point out because they have 4 points and the 8th place team has 5. The first place team only has 8. So, I mean, like I said, it's very early in the season still. It is a shortened season, but it's still quite early. That being said, my team is sitting in 12th. For the Western Conference, the Chicago Blackhawks hold down the number 1 spot, San Jose Sharks number 2, Minnesota Wild number 3, St. Louis Blues number 4, Anaheim Ducks number 5, Dallas Stars number 6, Vancouver Canucks number 7, and the Nashville Predators at number 8. Now, the Minnesota Wild hold down the 3rd position because of the division, and here's where some of the controversy is coming in. St. Louis, who's holding down the 4th spot, has 10 points. They've won 5 of 6. Minnesota has won 2 of 5, and yet hold the 3rd spot because they lead their division, because they're in a weak division. A lot of people say this is wrong, that seeding should be done by points and that's it. But then there's got to be a way to get rid of the divisions. And until that happens, division leaders, division winners need to have that spot. It's just the way it's got to be. Either they got to mix up the divisions so that there's more competitive teams in each division, or they got to get rid of divisions and just have an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference, and top 8 teams get in, and that's it. And I'd be fine with that. They also probably got to look at realignment, but I mean, that's a lot of things that the CBA's got to hopefully do. So, just quick stats. Your leader in points right now is tie between Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton, both of the San Jose Sharks. They both have 13 points. In goals, it is Patrick Marleau all alone with 9. In assists, it is Joe Thornton all alone with 10. Best goals against average is Craig Anderson of the Ottawa Senators with a 0.73 goals against, and he also has the highest save percentage at .975, or for you people who need percentages, 97.5%. Yaroslav Halak has 2 shutouts with the Blues so far, and Corey Crawford leads the league with 5 wins. So those are just some statistics for the NHL. All right. Moving on, I have one more little sports note. I'm not trying to do baseball too early, but something came to my attention when I was looking stuff up again earlier this week, and they have a new rule in baseball that was vetoed by the players the first time it came through, but as a part of their agreement when they signed the new CBA last, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe. If the rule was vetoed and they waited a year, the MLB can implement it no matter what. And this new rule is the trick pickoff move is now a balk. And what this means is when a pitcher is on the pitching rubber, ready to pitch, if he fakes to third and throws to first, it'll now be a balk. You cannot do that anymore. Basically, what's that eliminating? That's eliminating trapping the runner off first because he's breaking to second because he thinks the ball's going to third, and he'll get to second before the ball's at going to be thrown back to second from third. But actually, the ball goes to first, and then he's trapped in a run down, and they usually get the out. That's now a balk, which means basically if that happens, the player is awarded the base automatically. Pitchers can still step off the rubber and fake to third, but it's not the same because you actually have to step off and then it's noticeable. So this is a rule change, so look for that this year in Major League Baseball. We might see some balks in the preseason, but we might even see some in the regular season due to this new rule. So that's that. And that, friends, wraps up this week's Warlock Hour. It's a little shorter this week. I know I had a lot of entertainment news in there. I had some sports in there. Got your comic releases, got your new movies. So, hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, every Wednesday, Warlock Wednesdays, come check us out on anotherpodcast.com, or you can look us up on iTunes under Another Podcast. Have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you next week.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the podcast, anotherpodcast.com. It's where you can find your network. This is a network now. Mondays is Another Podcast. Tuesdays, Real Music with OJ and myself. Wednesdays is Warlock Wednesdays with Ray. We're starting off, we're going good, so we need you to participate. Yes, you can email anotherpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us in any questions that you would like us to answer, things to talk about on another podcast, or real music, or I can forward them on to Ray for Warlock Wednesdays. Also, there's a YouTube channel, Another Podcast on YouTube. You just look up Another Podcast. There's some videos uploaded already. We're hoping to go strong with that and some other projects we have on the go. So we are trying to build a network. We're trying to go 7 days a week. So Sundays is already taking. It will be starting up soon. Comics with Mikey, I think I'm going to call it. Comics with Mikey. And then that won't necessarily be a podcast. It's going to be an actual comic strip that you can go and read on Sundays. So we need 4 other shows: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Wait, that's 3. Yeah, we only need 3. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we need some independent podcasters out there who want to podcast for free. Yeah, that's right. Free. That's what I'm doing for you. I'm going to host it. I'm paying for it. I want to get my money's worth out of what I've paid for. So if you are Canadian, that's the one rule. Maybe we'll do one import. Just like the Canadian Football League, we'll have an import player. So, but I'll work that out later. So if you want to podcast once a week for free, anotherpodcast@gmail.com. Email me, hit me up, and we will work on it. I'll get you the details. Try to talk you through what I know, which is limited. No, it's not that bad. And we'll make it easy for you. Things are going good. The website's getting hits. I love it. I love you for listening to it. If I can speak plain English today. Thanks for listening. anotherpodcast.com. Another Podcast on Twitter. So you just go Another Podcast. And you can also follow me at The Real APOC on Twitter. So thanks for listening. Come back every day for more. Thank you very much. Bye.